Okay, good deal. Looks like we're recording. So, again, my name is Wes Seiler, and I'm the director of Preserve Navarre. So, that is a nonprofit. We're a 501c4, and we basically exist to serve our community. And if you ever want to see our bylaws or articles or anything like that, I'll be happy to send those over to you. Um, but there's a team of us. It's up to about 10 folks now who are running the effort between board members and advisors and staff who are working through this. And then we have a membership in the community of about 50 folks. And normally we have meetings every month, and we're up to about 100 folks who attend that. And then there's probably another 300 to 400 folks who are kind of in our purview because we're always working with chambers of commerce and things like that. Um, and so we are exploring the future of our area and what the people of this area want. So I'm going to share my screen here, and hopefully this works because I've got a couple websites that I want to share with you. So here we go. Before I do that though, does anybody know where Navarre is? And that's totally okay if you don't. No? Okay. That's actually awesome. So can you see hopefully on the screen now it's just a Google of Navarre, Florida. Is that yes? Everybody see that?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So I love the fact that you don't know where Navarre is. And that was one of the first questions I had with Celeste Green, who recommended you. Is I was like, Celeste, where's Navarre? And she's like, where's what? And I was like, perfect. And you'll kind of see why that is as we go through it. But the main reason is because we're looking for uh, professional, objective folks who don't have any conflicting interest in our area in its future. And so it's wonderful. We are so blessed to have y'all working with us. So you can see on the screen here, this is just if you type in Navarre, Florida, it's actually based, the name is based off of a small village in Spain. Um, this community, you can see here, is just 25 miles east of Pensacola, and it runs between 98 and Highway 87. So it's before you get to some other cities that are pretty big, like Fort Walton and Destin, and if you in Panama City. Um, but notice this right here where it says it's a census designated place in Florida. And essentially what that means, as well as this unincorporated community, is that we don't have any form of city government. So the only municipal form of government that we have is the county, which is called Santa Rosa, and it's been that way since the founder of Navarre, Guy Weidman, first brought it into existence many decades ago. And you can see here some of the things that it's famous for is crystal clear swimming. It's a beautiful beach area. Parks and picnics on the beach is what a lot of people do. There's increasing tourism in the area, and I could kind of go on about that. But you see the area here of almost 30 miles, and then the population of 37,000. We believe that's low. They just accomplished a census, and we're going to be getting the specific results for Navarre here pretty soon. We expect that number to have exploded, possibly as close as 50,000. And so kind of think about that. It's a really interesting situation that we have almost 50,000 people living in this area that's unincorporated, which means that they have no city representation, they have no city services, they're purely reliant on county services. And to a large degree, that's worked for years. But now there's increasing interest in Navarre becoming a city. And that's been tried a few times in its past, but it's been unsuccessful in terms of the vote. The most recent was in 2014. So was that 7 years ago? Um, and but the vote at that point lost. I think it was like 44% were in favor, which wasn't quite the majority that they needed. But now our group is exploring that again because there's been so much growth recently. And the other part is we're trying to do a little bit more research before we get to that vote next year, which will help people kind of make an informed decision. And you'll see that. And that's really that's where you have the opportunity to do something that we see is very, very special here in providing more information to our residents about the type of city that they could have. So yeah, so any questions on that before I go into the next one?
Right on
Good.
point.
Okay, so there's another website here. Let me pause for a second and bring Mike in here. Looks like we got one more of our members who might be joining. Um, moving on. So this is a website that has a little bit more information than just Google. So this is getrelaxing.com. And this is our county providing some tourism services to us. And you can kind of see here if you want. I mean, these are pictures and video of Navarre Beach. And you see like what they're talking about. That's the pier right there. Oh, it's just gorgeous. There's restaurants there that people love. And we are having our biggest tourism season ever in the history of Navarre. We actually didn't lose much in terms of tourism over COVID, which is hard to believe. But now that people are starting to come out of that and recover from it, it's just incredible how this area has exploded. So feel free to take a look at this. You'll see some of the opportunities and things like that that we enjoy, and all kinds of restaurants with lots of sugar and fat, which I love. So there you go. But it's a wonderful place. My family and I moved here 5 years ago, and we love it. And regardless of whether people think it should be a city or not, there's just this common appreciation for all the things that Navarre offers, and just how unique of a community it is. So feel free to take a look at that if you want to know more about where we are.
Wonder how
And
you change
yeah,
the video.
I think that's Mike on there. Um,
Sorry.
no, you're
Yeah, I
good.
know. It's like, how do I sign signal to Allison? I can see you. I'm like, I'm not sure I want them to see me.
It's all good. So that's Mike Matthews.
Yeah.
He's on our board as well. He's our treasurer on there. So, hey Mike, welcome. So, all
Yeah.
right. So now let me get into. So this is the community. This is where it's at. Like I said, this is a tourism video. If you actually go to the beach right now, you won't just see two people walking on the pier or a nice family having a stroll. You'll see hundreds of thousands of people. It feels like, up and down the beaches these days, because it really is. There's a whole lot of interest in the community, and you'll be sitting in traffic for an hour, trying to get to the beach on a normal weekend. It feels like so. This is our group. If you go to preservenavarre.com, this is our nonprofit that I'm telling you about. I'm going to show a quick video, and hopefully the audio works for you. It's about a minute long, I believe, and it's got me and they're talking, as well as so you'll see several of our board members, and it just kind of goes into what we do. So I'm going to play that now. What is Navarre's future? Is incorporation a good thing or a bad thing? So many people, when they consider this idea, immediately go to tax increases, bureaucracy, politicians who don't care about you. And that is a legitimate concern. And so if we incorporate, it has to be done the right way. That means we have to have the right people, the right structure, and the right services. That comes from you. And that's why we formed this nonprofit. We bring together people all across Navarre, and then we have discussions, we have research, we have all kinds of debates about how we move forward as a community. We believe that there is something about Navarre that is unique. I encourage you to come out if you're interested in protecting this place that we call home. So that was a lot of fun to make. Our actual meetings are far more contentious than that. We just told people to nod for the camera and like, please agree with me, at least for now. The actual meetings that we have are much larger than that. We had 82 folks at our last one. We expect to have over 100 at our next one. And there's a lot of people who do agree with Navarre becoming a city, but there's also a lot of skepticism and questions about how that's going to happen. And so that's kind of where our group is at now. We'll get into the survey, but feel free to look through this website. And if you go to learn more about Preserve Navarre, it'll bring you to this menu where, of course, it's got the video, but it's got the survey that we're doing, as well as our meetings, places for people to sign up. This is us speaking at county commissions, our social media, and all sorts of things through here. And we keep track of like our meeting minutes, and you can go in and see all the meetings that we've had in the past. And there's little videos that we do as a wrap up, as well as the minutes and the things that we cover at each meeting. So that's our nonprofit. We're not just involved in the whole incorporation effort. We are also involved in a myriad of things that the community needs on a day-to-day basis. And that's just the 501c4 benefits. Is we can explore all kinds of things, whether that's helping businesses that are struggling right now. Trying to find workers is difficult, so we're helping with that. We've gotten into environmental stuff in terms of protecting the water in this very briefly in this area that we live in. There's obviously plenty of ocean water, but drinking water is much more difficult to come by because of salt intrusion. And so making sure that the water is affordable and that we don't pollute it is extremely important where we live. And so we've kind of been a watchdog for that, as well as county governance and making sure that we're getting the most that we can out of that. Even if, we think that a city's going to do a lot of good, we still want to do good in the meantime and make sure that we're getting the most we can in the existing structure. So we do all kinds of things like that, et cetera, as we explore incorporation. Now, as I get into could Navarre become a city, you'll notice on the website that there's lots of links here for the survey. You see this right here, as well as at the top. It was asking you to go in. Let me go back here. It was asking you to take the survey. So what the survey is, and this is where y'all start to fit in, is we decided that if we're going to have Navarre become a city, that it needs to be decided by the residents, the structure, the services, all the different things that we can give to them in terms of decision making power needs to be utilized for the city, as opposed to us as a group just writing a charter and thinking what we thought alone was best. And so we said, let's have a survey, let's involve every resident possible in that survey, and let's ask them a series of questions that we need in order to provide a city. And so we call that Your Navarre, and this is what it looks like. And it can be accessed by phone, tablet, or the website. But Your Navarre is a separate website. Notice that yournavarre.com is a separate website that allows people to jump in and to be able to answer a series of questions about the city that they want to live in. And so I'll go through this very briefly and do just kind of a test one for you. So if I was taking this, I would put in my name. What's your name? I say, okay, it's Wes. I'll put in a street. So we'll just say Navarre Boulevard, which is not my actual address, but we'll put something in there because so we'll know it's a test version. And then it asks you questions like, what do you like most about your area, which kind of helps us prioritize, what people enjoy most. So you click buttons and then it records that response. What do you like least? This is just a general question about the obstacles that we face every day in Navarre. Some matter more to folks than others. And so, if the traffic, most people wish that we had more sidewalks and parks in our area. We wish we had some economic development going on in terms of specific shops that we don't have, or maybe it's just the insufficient county services. So they can click those. And then it asks, how long have you lived in Navarre? This goes back to that whole population explosion that we're experiencing. So for someone like me, it's been 4 years, almost five. So yeah, that kind of helps us track, is there any change that people have moved here versus people who've been here for a while? Some people aren't aware that Navarre is an unincorporated area. I think most are, but for a few folks, they're not. So, yep, I'm aware of that. And then it gets into this, which has taken us months in order to really research and nail down, which is what services would you want a city of Navarre to provide? And so this is kind of a cool experiment in democracy here, is that the people who take the survey are getting a chance to vote, generally speaking, on departments that a city could have. And so if you want a Parks and Rec department, if you want Public Works, maybe you enjoy the existing county law enforcement level, and so you don't want anything more with that, and you're okay with the fire control. It's a voluntary fire department at this point, but you want infrastructure, you want sanitation, you love to see more community events as well as economic development. You can click these buttons and it's giving you a cost estimate as to how much that would cost for our area. And it took us months to figure this out. We looked at over 8 different cities of comparable size and service levels. And then we said, okay, how much would that cost per year in their tax revenue being roughly about 20% of what they would contribute to the total cost of the service. And then we broke that down by month because that's kind of how most families do their budget. This is provided on a separate website that hopefully will come up. Here we go. And it tells you the 8 cities that we looked at, and it just explains what I just said right there. So it kind of gives people some additional, information about how those costs were found. Okay. And feel free to stop me if you have any questions along the way. I really don't mind. So once you voted on that, it also asks you to vote on the city boundaries, so you can decide how far north the city goes. You can say, I have no preference, or you can even write in some thoughts of your own if you feel like it shouldn't be as far west or east. Although we used voting districts to make these two maps. So we feel pretty confident that the city is going to align, maybe not exactly with this, but pretty close overall. So people can vote on that and say, yep, I think that area should be included or not. And then how would you like city decisions to be made? This just kind of says where should the major decision making power rest. So you could have a strong mayor form of government, or it could be a weak mayor if you pick one of these other ones. You could have a very strong city manager who makes most of the decisions, or it could be the city council. And if they have questions about this, we link them to some additional research about how Florida cities operate based upon the state constitution, so they can look at that too. Or maybe you want a mixed approach and try to utilize, all three of these forms of government, which I think is what many people are going to click. But we'll see. And then, how supportive are you of Navarre becoming a city? And this is probably the most controversial question: is are you supportive or not? And people ask, well, why'd you put that at the end? And the whole reason for that is because once you've gone through these steps of choosing a city, that's precisely the communal effort that we're going through, is defining incorporation and then choosing it along the lines that the majority has specified, as opposed to just incorporation, yes or no, which is how the vote will actually occur, the legal vote that the community has. And so we want to define that vote further than what the ballot says. That's the whole exercise that we're doing. And so maybe you still have some concerns, and so you're like an 8 or a 9. Some people, there is 0. They don't want it no matter what. They're absolutely against it. And some people are like, I'd be okay either way. So let's say that I'm a 9 right there. I still have maybe a little bit of concerns, but overall I like it. And then this is an optional question at the end. Would you like more info about Navarre becoming a city? And they can put in their email, and then we can connect with them with some more results and things like that in the future. So they do that, and then they hit submit. And then it says, thank you for helping decide Navarre's future. And it gives them, kind of tells them back to them what they just said, which is, here's the services that you want, and here's the average cost that you would entail per month if the city, went along with these guidelines. And obviously it'd be more if you chose more services and less if there was less. But this kind of gives people a baseline, or a starting point in terms of what a city would cost the average resident in our community based upon the average property value. So it just kind of starts to frame the discussion in ways that allow people to talk. Hey, I got $32. This guy got $20. This guy got $40, and we talk about the difference between those things, and that's where our meetings we discuss those different services. So and then of course it links them back to our website if they have more questions about our nonprofit. Everybody good so far? So that is the survey. Let me know if I'm going too fast or missing anything. Now, that's what everybody has seen. That is what has been unveiled to the public. What I'm going to show you now is some of the science behind it and how we do what we do. There is a home webpage where they can see my wife and child, encouraging them to take the survey, and more about our nonprofit and a little bit about how it works. But it says that we started this in May. So we did last month. Individual results are provided. You just saw an example of that. We want at least 5 to 7% to be required to achieve a statistically significant average. We're at 4% by net right now, so we're very close to that. But we're actually trying to shoot out much higher than that, because we're about to send out a postcard to every resident in Navarre. And here I will stop sharing my screen so I can show you that. So this is what it looks like, and it basically just says yournavarre.com, and then it gives them instructions on how to take the survey and goes over some of that same basic information. And of course, there's another shot of the beach and the pier, because that's who we are. So that's good. We spent quite a bit of money to be able to mail that out to every single resident, and that's going to start next week. So we're excited about that, because we think we're going to get well above the additional 1% we need, and hopefully closer to like 10%, but we'll know that within about a month. Okay. And then back here we'll provide the raw results for independent accountability and full transparency. I'm going to provide those raw results to you. So that's what's going to happen, is you will get access to those, as well as the resident of Noir. They'll be able to look and they'll see exactly what we see. And then after verification, that respondents are Navarre residents, and this is the part we'll need help with, Preserve Navarre will produce a public report detailing all the results. And we're aiming for the 1st of August for this. If we can't make that, we'll do early September, but they're just going to be based on what we can get done in the next couple months. So this is the software behind what we're doing is called Typeform, and I went ahead and logged in, and you can see what I see, which is the insights into the Your Navarre survey, and I can see how many people have taken it. So it looks like a lot of people have started it and then they didn't actually go through the survey. Some people just viewed it. But in terms of people who've actually responded to the questions, the 10 mandatory questions, and then of course the email is optional, we're at just shy of 1,500. So again, that's at 4%. Um, you can see it takes them an average of just under 5 minutes to complete it. So this is all that I see right now. However, we're going to get to a point where we have what we need in terms of the number of people, and we've sent out mails to everybody. And when we do that, we are going to connect it to Google Sheets and we will generate a report, something that I don't do right now. We will generate a report, and I tested this before we released the survey live. It will spit out a Google Sheet document that has every single response that has been input into the system, and we'll be able to look at those. Now, what's going to happen with that is that we are going to provide that Google Sheet to your team, and this is where the objectivity comes in. And we'll probably do a meeting just like this. Me and Taiwo, and I will say, here we go. I am pulling the report. I will click that button, and then I will immediately give her access to that file. Um, Once you have that file, bringing it back here to my screen, once you have that file, um, that's where your team can take over, take a look at that file, and see the results. And then what will need to happen, and this is where we can start to discuss it, is we will need to go through that file. And if anybody has taken the survey more than once, duplicates, we will have to remove those. And essentially, what I think we'll set up, and we can do this through email, is kind of a system to be able to do that. And that would just be highlighting the ones that need to be deleted, and then we'll agree, your team, our team, yep, that's a duplicate file, that's deleted. If anybody doesn't have an address in there, the only reason we ask for the address, and it says this on the survey, is to verify that they live in Navarre. We do have a voters roll, so that can be helpful. And then if they're not on the voters roll, we can just Google it and make sure it falls within those city boundaries. If they did not put an address on there, then we have to remove their entry as well. The names we're not too stringent on. We do have that voters roll, so we can maybe spot check that, just to make sure, especially if there's numerous ones for an address, or there's some type of discrepancy. We have the same address in there twice with a myriad of different names. We can just kind of confirm that at least one or two of those is actually on the voters roll, or we'll figure out ways to handle that one. I'm not as concerned about that. I just want to make sure that people actually live in Navarre, taking the survey. And that's really the big task, is going through all of that data to make sure that it matches up with legitimate residents in our community. One, and then once we have that finished, we'll have the final numbers, the final tally. I'm sure there will be quite a few that are deleted or for whatever reason. So that 1,500 number, if we were doing it today, would go down to probably 13 or 1,200, right? So once we kind of comb through that, we'll have the final results. These are the results, and then it'll be on our team to really make it look presentable and pretty and all of that for our big meetings coming up. And then when we make our final report to the residents of Navarre, I'll ask you to take a look at that and verify that as well, that the numbers that are on there, again, match up to what you saw in your published report. We've talked about compensation, so happy to compensate you for your time, including for this meeting. So that's the start of that. So please keep track of your hours that you spend on this, and we'll be paying you for your time, because again, we know we're paying for a professional service, and that you guys are doctoral students and public administration experts and all those type of thing. And then the last thing that I have for you, and I'll share my screen one more time here just so you can see where we're going as this works, is this right here. So this is kind of the full plan for Navarre to become the city of Navarre Beach, so no longer an unincorporated area, because we will have answered this questions of what services and structure do Navarre residents want. Hey, there's you, the PhD team. There's us, the nonprofit, working alongside you, but with a degree of separation for accountability's sake. And then it moves through to the other things that we have to do as a team: feasibility study, charter, city transition plan, all the way up into a vote that we expect will be next fall, in November. And then, of course, we have to actually build and create those services that have been promised to the people and keep it at a reasonable rate. So that kind of is the future, and all sorts of things that we'll have to work out. That'll be, much later. Um, okay, that's really what I wanted to go over. So, what questions do you have? What can I explain a little bit better or in more detail?
Okay, I'm just going to quickly jump in. Thanks, Wes,
Yeah.
for comprehensive explanation of everything. Um, and I know, like my other colleagues, I actually love Navarre more now.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, so are we stopping at 1,500, or are you shooting for more surveys?
Yeah,
Or
I'm
when?
shooting for more. So we're going to send out these postcards next week, because the 1,500 that we got was based on social media marketing, which is fairly inexpensive and easy, but it's not really a representative sample, of the greater community, because there's a whole lot of people that don't get on Facebook or don't really check websites and that. We've had some good coverage in the newspapers and, of course, our meetings, but we've raised enough money to be able to reach out to every single home. So that's going to happen with that postcard next week. And then we want to give time, a couple weeks, for people to be able to respond to that postcard and take it. So I'm shooting for probably the first or second week of July, as when we start to say, okay, good deal, that's played itself through, and let's go ahead and start our work. Now, if we get a large number of additional surveys later on, we can kind of do this process for an update to the report. And we can say, hey, we got 500 or 1,000 additional surveys. And if that were to change the results in any significant way, we would publish this, an updated report, version 2, whatever you want to call it, or an addendum or whatever. We would say, hey, based upon the numbers, it went from 40% are in support of law enforcement to now it's 47 or 48%, which is much closer to a majority. And so that would need to be discussed, and I have no problem doing that over the next few months. And that would just be, we would do the same process as a team. So that could be like in September or October. So yeah, it's essentially bringing you on in mid-July for a couple weeks worth of work, as available with your schedules. And that's why it's nice to have so many of you on your team, as available for a couple weeks in July, and then probably again, to update the report in September, October. That's what we're thinking.
Okay,
Good question.
thank you. Um,
Anything else?
I mean, just a quick follow up before I
Yeah.
know my colleagues. So, what is the cap? Like, what number are you shooting for?
Yeah.
3,
So
or?
we need, based on what I've learned in statistics and stuff, and feel free to correct me if I'm off on this, but for a representative sample, you're shooting for above 5%, right? You're shooting for above 5, and so that's why we're kind of excited as we're close to that. The ability, and this is just, I think, a cool aspect of local government, is when we're talking to every single home in the form of reaching them with the postcard. That's really just an exciting thing for us as a group, to be able to say that every home had the opportunity to participate in their city. For your purposes and for ours, we're almost at what we need for this. But I would love to see. I mean, there is essentially no cap, because I mean, if every home in Navarre took it, how like it's impossible, but it would be absolutely amazing. And we have the system in the survey software to be able to handle that kind of involvement. If 30, 40,000 people took the survey, Typeform would be able to handle that kind of traffic. So there's no cap with that respect. If we needed to do several updates as we got up to a really large number, we could. But if we got anywhere close to 10%, I would be thrilled, because when we have elections down here, you really only get about 20 to 25%. So if we are in with our nonprofit, our small little group, if we've got almost half the people that participate in an election, well, That's really amazing. But to answer your question, there is essentially no cap on that. We would love for as many people as possible to take it who live here, as long as they live here. That's really it. That's the restriction. They have to live here. So yeah. Anybody
Okay,
else?
thank you so much, Wes,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
your presentation and for introducing us
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
your beautiful city. It looks so good.
Thank
I've
you.
never been there, but it looks really nice. I might actually put that on my bucket list
There we
now to
go.
travel there. But I wanted to know, since we're shooting for August, well, at least 1st of August, you said, right?
That's for our meeting
Um,
for our initial report.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so when we get that information, like, we have all the data by, for example, the first week of July, what turnaround time were you thinking of for us to
I would
give you
need
those results?
I would need it. Let's see. Let's look at. That's a great question. Let's look at the calendar here. Um, I would need it about a week out from the meeting to be able to put that together. So we would probably say, let's say that we released, we started our initial report on the 5th of July, roughly, that we would need a turnaround time of about 3 weeks to be able to get, to make some progress with it, which I don't think it's going to
Okay.
take, an exorbitant amount of time. Really what we're looking at, and if we get behind, and I know I mean, obviously we all have lives and other things that we're doing, as long as there is dual certification, on this project, that's really what I'm going for. And so
Okay.
if we get to a point where it's half our team doing the initial review for let's say, I'm sorry, let me make sure I say this right. If we had to split the data and say half, and our team did the initial review for half the data and your team did it for the other half, and then we traded and we just checked each other's work, that would be fine as well. So if we get to a point where, we feel like we're running a little bit behind, we can have some of our team involved. But I don't want any entry to be deleted without an objective review of that, whether that's you doing it first or whether it's you checking our work. That's really the point. So yeah, I don't want us to be feel like we're running under the gun. So we can kind of work
Okay,
out
thank
some of
you,
those
Wes.
details over the next few weeks too, through email and stuff, just making sure we're doing all that right. So what else?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Anything else? If you think of anything, just send me an email. Let me know. Obviously, Taiwo is kind of like the leader of the team, so you can vector it through her or just CC her if you like. My closing thought to you is I really think I'm a student of public administration, not a doctoral one, but I am working towards getting my master's in it. And I think this is a really cool experiment in democracy, as I kind of alluded to before, because you think about, we talk about like the founding fathers and things like that, and James Madison and the Constitution. That's in our meetings, we bring that up often because they tried to choose a government based upon consent of the governed, which in 1780s and 1790s was difficult to do because how do you reach those kind of people? And you just kind of a republic, if you can keep it right with Franklin and Constitution Hall, and not quite asking everybody, in the country, because they didn't have the means or the culture to do so at the time. But it's different now, right? Like we live in a different time. And I think there's a lot of negativity about our political climate these days, but it doesn't have to preclude doing things more ethically if we exert effort towards that purpose and use technology for good as opposed to attacking somebody on Facebook who disagrees with us. And I think we're going to prove that through this experiment, is that we're going to build this charter and this feasibility study and the city transition plan truly on consent of the governed, the services that they want, the boundaries that they want. And that's where the whole postcard thing comes in, is literally reaching out to the entire community to say, this is your city, hence the Your Navarre name of the website. This is yours and you decide it. And when we get to a point where we are voting for it, well, it's the city that you said you wanted. And I'm so excited about that. And I think it'll be really cool to reflect on for years to come, is to say, hey, this community decided its city. Well, sure, what were they, a couple hundred people, maybe 1,000 people who had a town hall? No, this was 40,000 people who all, came together to be able to decide their future. And that, I hope, is something that you'll find interesting in your work as PhD students, and maybe maybe elsewhere, wherever you think it would be useful, because this entire system that we're setting up, I imagine may be useful for some team doing this in Texas, California, New York. I don't know, some other place where hey, we want to incorporate, but we don't know how, and maybe they'll kind of explore what we've done today. So that's my closing thought. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, if you have any questions more, let me know. We will keep track of the hours, and then, like I said, we'll about the last week of June here, we'll kind of solidify that plan and get to work and figure out what that looks like exactly. And I can't wait to see the results. So thank y'all.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Wes. And I mean, if you also want us to be part of the report process in any way,
Yeah.
either writing or just contribution in any way, ideas, anything,
Oh, that'd be
please
great.
let us know. We'll be glad to.
Yeah, it's really just going to be making it digestible to people, and and kind of showing things like, you could tell by the questions, you can show the results by total, which of course we want, but you could actually show what are the trends between people who've lived here for 5 years or less versus people who've lived here longer. Is the people who've lived here 5 or less, is that, is the services they want different, or not? And then what I'm really excited about is, with the addresses, we'll be able to narrow them down into the different voting districts. And we'll be able to say, well, this district, because there's about 6 of them, and I could show you a map with them broken down. We'll be able to plot the addresses, and we'll be able to say, well, District 6 is very much in support of these services, whereas District 2 doesn't really want nearly as many. And I can't wait for that, because what a powerful tool for a city government, as you have a city council member who comes from one of the districts, they can say already, well, I know my district has really been in support of more law enforcement, and maybe that's because they have, more crime or something like that. We could correlate it to, but you can kind of see how there's a tool here that we can emphasize even beyond the initial report. So there's so many other things that we can draw out of this. So I'd totally be open for your expertise and involvement in
I
that.
think, well, I
Yes,
think
sir.
something that would really, this would really be handy with when we start talking about strategic planning
Yeah.
and we start talking about developing a mission statement for the city.
Yeah.
We could probably glean a lot of the parts we need for an initial mission statement out of this survey. I mean,
Yeah.
we could use it as the superstructure, I think, for a mission statement, a
Yeah.
policy statement, something where what's our goal? What's our final effort
Yeah.
going to be? And then just take it beyond the incorporation, take it to the actual, what's our philosophy? What are we shooting for?
Sure.
Not just to get incorporated, but okay, what are we going to do 5 years down from the road?
Right.
What are we going to do? How are we going to look?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that when they get done with their report, I think we could look at something like that. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's something that we've talked about before as well. Our board has, Taiwo, is, what we're building today is going to be useful tomorrow, because let's say that there is a city government and the mayor is trying to decide with the city council, how we're going to paint our water tower, right? We've got 4 designs and I don't know which one is best. Do they just make that decision by themselves, or do we have a week-long survey to ask the residents very quickly, choose from one of the 4, and then they pick, and then, maybe one costs more than the others and we put the price tag on there. Are you willing to, to invest more money in this at the expense of something else? And we blast that out there as a group, and then the nonprofit hands it to the city government, who goes and, again, saying, hey, it's your water tower, not just the mayor's. So there's so many uses for this for the future as well that we're excited about. So it's good stuff. So anyway, but yeah, I don't want to keep you any longer, because we've already been at it for 40 minutes. So thank you again. Let me know if you have any questions, but we are so grateful and honored to have your expertise and so many folks involved in this. So on behalf of the board and the advisors and everybody associated with our effort, thank you again for your time and your support in this.
And thank you, Wes. Thanks for the opportunity as well.
Got it.
Wes. Thank you, Taiwo, for this opportunity too. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Y'all have a good night. We'll be in touch soon.
Take care.
All right. Bye.